Welcome to Four Quarter Lives, a podcast exploring the profound impact of longer, healthier, and more engaged lives, not only for ourselves and our couples, but also for companies and countries. I'm Avivah Wittenberg-Cox, and on this week's Four Quarter Lives, I talk with Katja Meier, founder of Zenka Films in Switzerland and the creative force behind a new TV series called Share. We dive into Katja's journey of bringing Share to life. This is a story about 59-year-old Lena Corbin, a woman navigating wealth, power, and legacy while challenging the status quo of capitalism and feminism. Inspired by real-world figures and her own experiences, Katja weaves a compelling narrative that's as much about personal transformation as it is about systemic change. She shares the challenges and triumphs of developing this project, from securing early funding and support from initiatives like the Migros Story Lab and the Writers Lab, to resisting industry pressure to turn her 59-year-old protagonist into a much younger leading lady. Instead, she's proving there's a vibrant market for stories centered on women in Q3 and beyond. We'll also explore how Katja's innovative production approach mirrors the themes and values of her series: transparency, equity, and collaboration. Whether you're a filmmaker, a creative, or simply someone who believes in the power of storytelling to reshape our ageist narratives, this episode is packed with inspiration, lessons, and a nice vision for the future. Let's dive in. Welcome, Katja Meier, to Four Quarter Lives. I'm delighted to have you with us.
Thank you, Avivah. I'm honored to be here. Thanks so much.
You are launching a new TV series. You've got the first one in the bag, and it's just starting to stream. Give us a little taster. What's the story all about?
Okay, so it's about Lena Corbin. Lena Corbin is a British-Swiss citizen. Her parents moved to Switzerland in the 60s, built up a commodity trade and mining business. And she inherits a third of this business and, needs to decide what she's going to do with this. Suddenly she's very rich and she's very powerful, and she can either just continue what her parents did, sort of make a lot of money and not care too much about how this money is being created, or she can try to change things. And that's where it gets interesting. That's where we start the story. So she's got a sister who's not going to be too happy about, having things changed, and a niece who is running this commodity trade and mining company, who also has very different opinions from her. So it's a question of, it's about, she's going to fight the status quo, basically. And she doesn't have all the answers. She has to find out how can she do better, actually. It's not going to be via philanthropy in her case, because that's something her parents did. They had these mines and did not very nice business. And then they had a couple of foundations that opened orphanages, and, they could sleep peacefully at night. And that's not what she wants to do.
So a bit of a female-led succession kind of debate. Family issues, economic issues, inheritance issues, all kinds of stuff. So this is a big, broad splash about capitalism and feminism to some extent. What inspired you to create all this? Where did it start? How did this whole concept come to life?
Yes, it's interesting that you name succession, because that's when I started to work on the idea and on the script. That's something that popped up several times, that people say, wow, this is sort of a Swiss succession, a female succession. And I got into it because years ago I ran a refugee home in Tuscany, where I lived during the so-called refugee crisis. I worked with migrants and refugees from all over the world, and I sort of asked myself the question, what is really helping here? What does doing good actually mean? It's much more complex than we think. And that's how I wrote a book about that. And then the book brought me to a screenplay, and it became evident that there's a lot of material there that could be really interesting to become a series, also because currently there are some very interesting female philanthropists who choose very different roads. There's the very by now famous Marlene Engel, who has inherited money in Austria and is giving it all away. There is Mackenzie Scott, Steve Bezos' ex-wife. They're doing interesting things. They're really breaking out and rethink this whole concept. And I actually when I started researching this topic, I read a book by Dame Steve Shirley. She's a British citizen.
Absolutely.
An incredible woman who sort of, yes, you know her. She has an incredible history and just her thinking. I read her biography and what she did with all the money she got her money.
An IT pioneer before IT, or even in IT.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's interesting to see how she then rethought being rich and what that means and what she can do with the money. And I think this is something I've heard you talking about also, how women are coming into wealth, some of them inheriting it, but others have created it themselves, and they have different ideas, or they look for a different purpose, and that's sort of the question.
That was the foundational story. Interesting.
Yeah.
So a mix of sort of famous global role models, a little bit of TV current models going the other way. And I understand it was not the easiest film to develop. So tell us a little bit where you wrote it and how, early recognition helped. So for all the budding filmmakers out there, early recognition and then a whole series of rather unexpected, perhaps, obstacles.
Yes. So it was exciting when I started to work on this idea that I got some initial funding. It's like in the startup world, it might be called sort of seed funding or something, where you don't quite know yet where this is going, but people sort of realize, oh, here's something. That's an exciting thing for an artist and the writer. And then I had the possibility to write a script, do an outline, write a script. And then the script was...
Where did the seed come?
That's an excellent Swiss foundation called Icarus Story Lab. And they're trying, and I think in a way, they're looking to the startup world with what they're doing in the cultural world. Sort of they're realizing this is if we want different stories and new ideas, we need to help people early on in the process to work on these stories. And a really important thing is also that their application process is anonymous. So you don't, somebody like me, what are my credentials to pull something like this off? I think many, but not in a stereotypical curriculum. I haven't been in the industry for the last 30 years. So that was super helpful that I was just able to hand in this idea anonymously. And then once you get that sort of funding, that helps then that opens all the doors, definitely, because they're well known, at least in Switzerland, and that will sort of give you credibility. And then the same thing happened with the Writers Lab UK and Europe, which is a fabulous screenwriting lab that supports women 40 plus. And that also helped a lot.
What is that? I think that's backed by a couple of also famous women.
Yes. It's
who are the backers behind that?
It's backed by Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman. And I think recently Natalie Portman also became a funder. When I did it in 2023, it was Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman. And of course, that is super helpful.
What's the aim of that? Or I'm just interested because you're naming these really crucial kind of stepping stones for people with ideas, that there are actually resources out there that we might not have heard about. So
yes, so it has been around, I think, for 10 years now, because the founders of the Writers Lab realized there are not enough screenplays out there written by women or with also interesting, inspiring female protagonists or characters that reflect the very varied and interesting lives we live. And that's why they set it up, and that's how they got the funding from Kidman and Streep, because they as actors know that, they read their funded scripts. Yeah. And Julia Berg, who is a British producer, she brought it to Europe. So I was super lucky that when I was ready with my script and started to hand it in to screenwriting contests, the lab had I think they started in 2021 in Europe also. And the excellent thing isn't just of course, the just the names, that's the credibility you gain, but also that the lab in itself, it's a 6-month process. You work with them, you work on your scripts, and you're becoming member of a cohort of writers, female writers who have excellent scripts. You also learn a lot from your peers and realize, wow, there are these amazing stories out there. I mean, I was just so excited to read.
I mean, what an extraordinary chapter for you. Did you have background in writing and creativity, or is this at a sudden age? And I'm curious, at what age did this all begin for you?
I was an actor when I was in my early 20s, and I left the industry maybe with 26, 27, and moved abroad, traveled, settled in Italy, and I worked in a lot of different industries, as I said, shelters for women and refugee homes, but also wineries, the tourism industry. I'm an olive picker, wedding planner, many things. And it was really the experience in the refugee home that brought me back to storytelling, when I just sort of realized there was also sort of copywriting, and I just realized this is a story that I can't just write up in a blog post. It needs a book. So that's what brought me back to the storytelling. And also at that point, my kids were, sort of teenagers at that point. I have 2 kids.
How old were you when you published your first book?
I think I was 40, mid-40s somewhere.
Mid-40s, yeah, just like me. I published my first book at 47. So it's interesting to see a growing number of women emerge into what I call Q3 with this creativity instinct that might be new.
Absolutely. It's or how you can suddenly, I know that from your work, of course, that's definitely my experience, where suddenly also they're opening up these windows where you can dedicate more time to your own projects again, besides, my day job and whatever else I'm doing, or actually then for my creative work, all those other experiences are, they're really fabulous. You can then sort of use them, and that's storyteller's gold, actually. That's often the problem of the sort of film world also, is that it tends to become an ivory tower that sort of loses connection to people's lives.
Yeah, normal lives, absolutely. So you publish a late book or a midlife book. You move into a series of useful kind of gate openers into this, fairly reserved world. You get awards and recognized and money. Then what happens?
Yeah, I'm on this lab, and yes, that opens doors. You get industry meetings with producers. And then this one thing comes up again and again, that my protagonist, she's 59 in the script, and the industry recommends vividly, and they mean this sort of as an advice, well-meant advice for me. If you want to go anywhere with your career with this script, lower her age, turn her into a 35-year-old woman or a 39-year-old woman, because we can't sell a script with a 59-year-old woman that easily. It will be hard to find an audience for this. Sometimes it happens, it works, but these stories are few and far between.
And did they back that up with, explanations or data?
I found the data that proved that this is actually really happening. There are organizations out there showing the stats. Women are missing or are disappearing from the screen, sort of from 30 on upwards. And when you talk about this with the people in the industry, they're sort of, some are aware, some are just sort of saying, yeah, but the market dictates what we're doing. If there's no market, we would love to tell these stories, but if the market isn't there, there's nothing we can do. So I realized this isn't just a question about, sort of saying, hey, we need gender parity. And it's more also about having to prove that there's a market for this, because it's an industry, it's entertaining.
Yeah. So they wanted to lower the age by about 30 years, 20 years, I guess.
Yeah.
You insisted, you said this is a story about an older, the whole point of this is that she is an older woman, right? How did the conversation go? You just decided that if you want to do this your way, you're going to have to do it on your own?
Yes, I guess early on I said, look, I think I'm also interested in doing, not just because it's hard to find somebody who will do it, but I actually think it's also exciting I'm at a point in my life, why not try doing this? I'm saying on my own, but you need a crew and the cast. Film work is collaboration. It's all about collaboration, about finding a great crew and a great cast. I think what was interesting, what happened is that people kept telling me, okay, yes, great, your script is great and you're to something, but wait, now we're going to connect you with an expert. We're going to find somebody for you who really knows what they're doing. And it made me laugh so much, so often, because I also was a bit in the startup world with my, in the meantime, I founded Zenka Films, my film production company. And when you're in the startup world, it's all about, get out there, found your businesses. And society tells 18-year-old teenagers, male teenagers mostly, you have got an idea, do it, get a garage, be the next Apple, whatever, save the world by doing this fix. And as a woman, with my life experience at 52, I'm continuously told, you need to find somebody who really knows what they're doing. And, you're just sitting there and thinking, I know what I'm doing. Doesn't mean I know how to find, it's not about, I love to learn about experience, sort of find the answers. I think what we women at this age, what we've learned is how to figure things out, because that's something we had to do, whether you had kids or not, whether it's in your career. So you've got all this experience, and it's sort of interesting that the world is still stuck in this idea that we shouldn't do this, that it's too risky for us, that it's okay for my 20-year-old son to do this.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because there's no precedent, right? So until you see it, until you prove it. So try and prove this on your own. What does that entail, and how are you going about it?
It's a long journey, but it's a very adventurous and exciting one too. And
so you've gone out and you've produced the first installment of.
So I think when you have a crazy idea, you need to find somebody else who believes in your idea, And then once in Italian, there's a saying, non ci sono due senza tre. So once you're two people, you sort of, a third one will arrive. And then it's like, I don't know, like this sort of, when you're three people, it's like an energy thing. You're sort of all the naysayers and all the people who say, this can never happen. It's just, you don't hear them that much anymore. So that's, the hard bit is at the beginning, to find those people who see what you see.
Who were your people?
And in my case, I was lucky. It was the Lena, our protagonist, Victoria Traupensdorf, the actor. She read the script before this one, before Cher. She read Alpenglow and already loved that and said, let's just do this. It's the director, Katja Meier, but it's also our musician. He's 30 and he's in Argentina. So he already told me early on, oh, wow, if you do this, I want.
They just all, so you just hooked them with the story. They just all fell in love with the script and said, we're in?
Yes, you need something, I think, that creates joy, that it creates excitement. So it's not about, at least in our world, in the entertainment world, that's sort of, it's not about activism or educate. That's the second thing then also, we need, that's when you say, hey, we can do this or that. But the first thing you need is, it's like with a book. It's like when I wrote my book about my work in a refugee home, I always knew I want people to enjoy this book. I don't want them to read it because they feel they should really read this.
Yeah.
I want them to really enjoy the ride, and then hopefully they close the book and something stick, and they sort of ponder them a little bit. But I love entertainment. So it has never been for me to, in a way, entertainment is my vehicle to change something in the world. I think it can be done whilst we have a good time also.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so now you've got the crew. You start filming the first series. Tell us about that. How did it go? And also share the production values, because it's not only the protagonist of your story who wants to change the way she does things. You want to change the way your whole industry does things.
Yes. So as I said, it's about the commodity trade and mining world, and they don't have a very nice track record. And then we are working in the film business. And if you look at the film business, things aren't great in the film business either. So you can't sort of, I think for us, it was clear very early.
In terms of what? In terms of how they treat people and
how they treat people, the contracts, talent, no transparency regarding salaries, regarding, just sort of, I think actually even in terminology, commodity trade, mining, there are words like extracting, exploiting, and these are words, you can really mince them on the film business very well. You use the commodity of people in the film business. You need fresh flesh, and then you sort of discard of it the moment you feel, oh no, this isn't selling anymore. So, and this is why we felt if we tell this, I strongly felt there's no point in telling this story of a woman who wants to change things if then we just use the old methods in doing so. It has to be congruent what we're doing to what's happening on screen also has to be happening.
What are the new methods that you've...
Casting, we don't do any castings, for example. We sort of just talk to actors who we thought they might be interested. They read the script and said, yes, we're interested. And it was interesting with Katja Meier, our director. We had moments when we thought, okay, is this really right? Or should we also look? And then you start to look at some websites and then you immediately realize you start to discuss people suddenly, like you fall into this way, the industry. Horse trading is an excellent example. And we just thought, is this really necessary? And my experience as a young actor had been that in theatre, I worked with an ensemble of actors, and you chose a play, and you didn't have to then you were this ensemble, and you could play Shakespeare or Goethe or some modern, whatever it was. And just the 10 of us, we could do that and that's something I love about acting, because if the craft is there, and the industry is all about, finding the right people who match, who have chemistry. But really, a good actor has the craft to make you believe she or he has chemistry with the other person, opposite. That's the magic. So that was one thing. The other thing is, of course, how we discuss our contracts, how transparent. We were organized like a startup. We're a no to low budget production. So even more so, it's important that everybody knows what they're getting into, and that if this is going to become a success, they're all sort of, the hard work they put in will be not just paid, but also give them access to some things, to participation in a bigger scheme. So because they're the ones who are carrying the risk.
So they're co-owners of the risk and the rewards.
Exactly. And there is again because that's something Lena, our protagonist, is also, that's what she's trying to do with the company. She wants to turn it into a steward-owned company. So in my research, I found organizations who Purpose Switzerland is one of them, who are sort of, discussing all these new ownership models and rethinking capitalism, post-growth, whatever it is. And a lot of this I cannot just only use in the story. I can also use it as a business owner. And with our, we discuss its work. You have to sort of discuss it all. And
is it proving inspirational to the crew and the cast?
Yes, I definitely say so. I think the fact that in the end we went up there onto a winter campsite filming, below zero. It's tough.
It's a hard job. Filmed in the Swiss mountains.
Giselle filmed
in the snow, in the cold.
Yes, and you really have to.
I love your craft.
Yeah, you have to feel inspired to do that. I mean, why would you do that on a low budget production and you sleep in a caravan on a campsite? And, all I could offer was a really good catering and a good team and a good team spirit. But yes, that's definitely, you have to feel inspired to do that.
Yep. So what's been the reception? You've created and had a limited distribution of the first episode, which I watched with great delight and thought it was absolutely terrific. What's been the broader reception? What do people think? Are you encouraged?
So at the moment we are audience testing. We're going to go online. So we had this, what you've watched, the preview phase. And then from mid-January, we'll be online for the wider audience. And we're going to stream globally and also apply to festivals, etc. fundraisers.
The links will all be in the show notes of this podcast episode.
Thank you, Avivah. And it's very exciting because I think what I said at the beginning, we had to prove, or we have to prove, we still have to prove that there's an audience out there for this.
Yeah.
And it's a long journey, and people keep telling us, but the film industry is not in a good moment at the moment. There's no money. It's all blah, blah, blah. And what's just been fabulous to receive comments now from viewers who are just really stamping their feet and saying, oh, wow, this is fabulous. Keep doing this. I want to see this. This is just it. And it's like, it isn't just about, it is about the story. They have fun watching the story. They want to see episode 2. They're interested how this goes further. But it is really also about realizing how we're doing this and what we're pulling off here. This is a crazy feat. And it's sort of, I get a lot of people sending emails saying, this is so inspiring. This made my day. And thinking that I was in pitch meetings with film people who told me, audience 50 plus, don't think that's going to work. And we knew, because we are a part of the...
We are that audience.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so that's fabulous. That's one really exciting thing.
You'll be proving a bigger point if it works, that that 50 plus is a market, that they do have purchasing power and they are looking for content that actually corresponds to their lives. So it'll be very, very interesting to see.
Absolutely, because I'm also an audience member, so I want to have my story produced, but I also want to make sure that, the scripts I've read on the Writers Lab, my peer group scripts, they're brilliant. They need to be seen. They need to be, so if we can show this can work, people are out there, and not just it can work with our target audience, but a really surprising thing also for me was now that we're also starting to get comments from younger viewers. It's just great to see that it works for them too. So it's, this idea that, I don't know, a 25-year-old woman doesn't want to see a 59-year-old woman on screen. I don't know where that's coming from, honestly. Of course, a 25-year-old woman also needs to see herself on screen. We need all the shows. It's not about the competition.
It's not either or.
Yeah, but that it's actually, they're excited about the stories and about Lena's questions and what she's trying to do. So
it's also about, shining a light on the road ahead for younger people. What is aging like? What does happen to you in later stages of life that they might learn from and prepare for? So I'm actually curious then at your age and stage, just entering Q3, what have you learned through all of this? This has been quite a ride for quite a few years. You're now just on the sort of cusp of making this actually dream come true.
Yeah, God, lots of things. I mean, God, I think I need to write a Substack about this one. But, I guess it's so much basically. But I think a lot of it has to do with learning that what I love about life, that we can change, that we can sort of try out new things, that I'm much more resilient now than I was with 25 or whatever. I really learned to sort of face obstacles and actually,
embrace them. You're doing more. Yeah, you're doing more than just face.
Yeah.
Like you're taking them as a sort of personal and interesting challenge.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you have to if you're in this business and trying this, but it's not just a sort of. I often think as in our society as women, we're sort of trained on this idea. The sleeping beauty. We're supposed to lie somewhere looking beautiful, and somebody will kiss us awake. And I talk about this a lot with people in the industry. So
waiting to get saved by somebody else.
Yeah, saved, seen. And at this age, it's so fabulous. You know what? Why should I be waiting? I'd much rather get up and get out there and do my thing. And I can see that happening all around me, And also, we've got the life experience to pull that off. Doesn't mean it will always be easy. But actually, we're out there, we're doing it. And that's the really exciting bit to me in all of this.
It's wonderful to hear and see the energy that you are emanating around this, not just this project, but this phase of life. It's very emblematic. So what might be your advice, and we'll end on this, to filmmakers generally? What all the people who are listening who might be facing challenges in getting Q3 women and all of our issues into the mainstream, anything, corporate world, medium, storytelling, family dynamics and inheritance.
Two main things for me. One, I can just sort of what we just discussed about, don't wait to be discovered. Don't let people tell you to stand in line and somebody will come and see. Just get out there, do it. Don't let people tell you now to wait for somebody who knows better. You're the one who knows better, whether that's because you raised 2 kids and there was no expert around to tell you how it's done. You figured it out, or whether it's because you had the career or whatever it is, So, and the other thing I think more specifically for the film industry, what always surprises me is that, because I've worked in many other industries also, and with the film industry, you'd think, oh, this is a creative industry. And the weird thing is that the way people do business in the film industry, it's not very creative. So I think
the creative people and the business people, they're not.
Yeah, it sort of doesn't intersect very well. And I think if you're a writer or an actor or an artist or whatever, use your creativity. When people tell you, no, but this is how it's done here, and now you have to wait in front of this gate, and then afterwards you have to wait for that one. Don't buy into that, What would your protagonist do in your story? How would she deal with that? That's your sort of magic wand you have. That's your magic power. Use that. Okay, they're telling, because these are also the stories we want to see. If the stories where, yes, this worked out and then I did this and that worked out, that's not what we're watching on TV. So sort of use what the stories you tell, you can sort of adapt them in real life. They can sort of feed in and they sort of carry you through.
Katja Meier, thank you for your time, your energy, your role modeling. And boy, do I sure hope that you raise all the money you want, because I want to see episode number 2. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you so much, Avivah. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
For more thinking about the impact of our 4-quarter lives, you can read my column at Forbes and subscribe to my Elderberries newsletter on Substack. Let's design lives that aren't just longer, but better.